Hello and welcome back to Typical City. Manchester City will be cleared of all charges. Those are the words that came out of the mouth of Stefan Borson, a financial and litigation expert who was once an advisor to Manchester City during 2001 to 2007. The man himself actually handled the Taskin Shinawatra takeover during that time as well, which led to Manchester City being available to bigger people out in the world, bigger buyers effectively, which then led to Sheikh Mansour. So well done, Stefan Borson, for making Sheikh Mansour, the now owner of Manchester City, really did the Taskin Shinawatra deal, but he opened the door to Sheikh Mansour, let's say, which is fantastic work as far as I'm concerned. But it's an amazing concept that we are seeing now, and not an unfamiliar one in truth as football fans and generally. This is hardly new, is it? The media deciding to cherry pick statements out of an individual's speech, let's say, or the choice of words that he's chose to use. They've cherry-picked the statement, and TalkSport is the focus for this particular video because Stefan Borson is being interviewed by Jim White and Simon Jordan on TalkSport, and the headline for their video is "Football Finance Expert Claims Manchester City Will Be Relegated If Guilty of Their FFP Charges." Now, that's not even the only place to have had that intention, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the manipulation. He goes on to say that he believes Manchester City will be cleared of all charges. That's what I took away from it. That's what he believes. But he also said if found guilty, then yeah, I think that they'll be relegated. That's an obvious statement because they've already set the precedent with regards to charging Everton and Nottingham Forest and potentially Chelsea. They've set the standards now. The guide and measure of punishment is a little bit clearer now. So if City were to be found guilty, then yeah, relegation. It doesn't take a genius to work out that Manchester City would likely be relegated. But he said he doesn't believe they will be found guilty of anything and they'll be cleared of all charges. Something I've been saying on this channel for quite some time in truth, and one of the only City fans to be talking about and defending City on this platform to such a degree that I'm relentlessly talking about it because I believe it. And this man has, and it makes me feel so good. It warms my heart. It really does, because this man has echoed everything I've been saying for months about Manchester City. Everything he says, I've been saying, and I am far from an expert, by the way, so far from an expert, but the information that I had readily available to me, I made use of it. I took it, I read it, I absorbed it, and I provided you with my opinion on what the situation is. That's all I did. This is exactly what this man's doing, and he's deemed as an expert on the situation, and he echoes everything I've said. I've seen most City fans saying they're worried, and that they are guilty, and they've believed all this manipulation from the media, because that's what this is. This is manipulation from the media. That's all this is, and they fell into that trap. And if they start piping up again all of a sudden, go, City, you're innocent, City. Where were you when we were being called guilty? And we still are, by the way. We still are being called guilty. And they're not the only ones either, TalkSport either. Let's have a look at some of the general headlines that I've seen. So, in the Daily Mail's headline, for example, former Man City financial advisor claims the club will be relegated at least if FFP charges are proven. Again, the focus is on City going down. Not the words that he actually said, that City are going to be cleared of all charges, in his opinion. Even the MEN, Manchester Evening News, Man City will be relegated if found guilty on financial breaches amid FFP crackdown. That's because it grabs your attention, doesn't it? Because the majority of the world want to see us go down. It grabs attention. It even grabs the attention of City fans because it makes us worry, you know? They won't want to see my headline, Man City innocent, Man City cleared of all charges. They won't like that, will they? So if this gets 0 clicks, I couldn't give two shits. But those of you that are watching, thank you. And I hope it makes you feel better, because I certainly feel better after watching Stefan Borson talk on TalkSport. And I'm going to show it you in a minute, by the way. Even the Daily Post in Nigeria, Nigeria's headline for EPL, Man City will be relegated if found guilty of 115 financial charges. Unbelievable. Anyway, let's have a listen to what Stefan Borson actually had to say for himself.
So when we come to talk about Manchester City and the 115 charges that they face, everybody seems, Stefan, to hit something of a brick wall. In front of the DCMS the other day, Richard Masters, top man at the Premier League, was saying, yes, a date has been set for the hearing regarding the charges that face Manchester City, but he won't tell us when. You've got your ear to the ground, haven't you? When is it, Stefan?
Well, I don't know when it is, because all anybody knows is what... there's a piece from Mike Keegan.
Why would that compromise anything?
Well, it doesn't compromise anything, but, you know...
So why wouldn't Masters reveal it?
Well, first of all, there is strict confidentiality clauses within the Premier League rules. So I assume that's what he's got in mind in saying he can't comment when it is. But there is a ludicrous situation that we have right now where we have this situation ongoing, and at some point, at some day that nobody knows, nobody knows exactly when, an announcement is going to drop. Again, we don't know whether it's going to be in the morning or the afternoon. There's going to be an enormous announcement that completely changes, I would say completely changes Premier League football.
Like what?
Either way.
Like what?
Well, either that City have been cleared, or for me as a City fan, and you haven't revealed that yet, but somebody that's objective, I would like to think, to the extent that anybody can be, and I think football bias is a very strong thing. And
objective.
We have to. Did I say biased?
You said subjective.
Subjective, yeah. No, okay. Objective.
No, he didn't. He said objective. Just have a listen.
But somebody that's objective, I would like to think.
Somebody that's objective.
To the extent that anybody can be, and I think...
Brace yourself. This is heckling from Simon Jordan. This is heckling. You can see him getting ready. He's arming himself ready to start heckling. This is a man who's being questioned and interrogated almost, okay? And he keeps his cool beyond anything I've seen. An absolute bravo to Stefan Borson for dealing with Simon Jordan's nonsense. And it's just pure heckling. He's just trying to throw him off and grab something for the media to use, make him sound like an idiot, basically. But he does nothing of the sort. And in the end, Simon Jordan's the idiot coming out of this one.
Football bias is a very strong thing. And
objective.
We have to... Did I say biased?
You said subjective.
Subjective, yeah. No, okay. Objective. We all try and be as objective as possible, but...
Anyway, carry on.
And that's what I'll try and be in our discussion about City. But the consequences of City, of the charges being proven, are obviously enormous for the club and enormous for the fans. I mean, so and the idea that the Premier League can say nothing until some mystery date sometime in the future, can say literally nothing. That's their plan at the moment. Mm-hmm. No timetable,
right?
No indication of actually what the allegations are beyond that list. I mean,
that is unbelievable. When you really think about it, have you ever seen a situation, even like the police, for example, when the accuser is so certain with their case that they want to bring forward, the accused, they're the ones who have a microphone shoved under their face normally, and they're usually saying no comment, no comment, no comment. In this case, it's the Premier League saying no comment, no comment. They're the accusers. They should be on the front foot. They should be going, they've done this, and we believe they've done this, and this is what we're going to do. This is this, this is this. They should be the aggressor in this situation. That is normal litigation in any situation I've ever seen as well. And again, I'm not an expert, but they normally go on the front foot. Have you ever seen the Premier League being so tentative and so scared to go into the public? Something going on here, isn't there? It's all falling into place all of a sudden, this is.
I've worked, quite hard.
Have you seen the charges?
Well, no, I've seen the charge sheet that everybody's seen, but I'm able to decipher it because of my knowledge of previous cases and joining some of the dots and some of the things I've written
and what do you think?
Are public on that. And so I understand the case, but most people don't understand the case because why would they? It has never been explained to them. And Richard Masters sits there and says, well, we've agreed a date.
It is similar, though, to the case that UEFA ran, isn't it?
I think it's very similar to the case the UEFA ran.
Well, that's great news because we were cleared of all charges on that other than failing to cooperate. So that's fucking fantastic news.
And that's
it's a simple argument that can be easily explained, which is that shareholders are funding the football club through concocted sponsorship deals, inflating those sponsorship deals, representing them as sponsorship revenue, when really it's equity money going into the business. So you're representing Etihad or Essalat, that were major sponsors during this period of time, putting X amounts of tens of millions of pounds in on sponsorship deals, which aren't what they say they are. They're actually funding coming from another business called ADUG, which is Sheikh Mansour business. That's what the accusation is.
What you're dealing with there in the value of sponsorships and how much a sponsorship should be worth is opinions. I've said it already. I gave the example in my most recent video of Chevrolet, for example, giving 50 million to United but 49 million to Fulham. It's like, how do you work out what that's worth? You're in opinions now. You're in a subjective situation. And now you can give an exaggerated example of a piece of art. How much is that piece of art worth? It's as much as the person who's prepared to pay for it. That's how much a piece of art is worth. How much is it worth to sponsor Manchester City? How much is it worth to the sponsor who's paying for their sponsorship? How much is it worth to them? Because they could argue Manchester City, we saw the future. We predicted Manchester City's success. We looked at their situation and see that club is on the up and up, and we want to be associated with them. So we're going to pay top dollar, more than what is the general the pattern of spending on sponsorships in the Premier League. We're going to break that pattern and spend more because we believe Manchester City are going to be the top dogs. And they were right, because we are top dogs. We're the fucking treble winners. Guess what? They were absolutely spot on. So how can you tell them that value was wrong? You're in opinions now. In a court of law, that's going to get thrown in the bin in seconds.
Well, the accusation, I mean, City wrote themselves. You know, if you look at, because it is similar to the case, I mean, City wrote themselves. The allegations made in these proceedings are serious and based on fraud and conspiracy involving City, ADUG, the sponsors Etisalat and Etihad. You know, these are serious allegations of fraud and dishonesty. It would require a conspiracy, and that is the word City used. These are not my words. These are City's words. It's an allegation of fraud and conspiracy that's been made by the Premier League against multiple parties.
And by UEFA, and one of which
So, Stefan, we try and make this
convicted them of.
Understandable.
Let him talk, for God's sake.
They did. However, of course, CAS overturned it and said over 10 times that there was no evidence for the club.
I'm just trying to break this down for the layman, of whom I'm one. So, Stefan, here we go. You've said that in the months to come, maybe weeks and months to come, a day probably will materialise when there will be an announcement out the blue regards Manchester City. Either the charges are dropped and life goes on, or presumably the alternative, City are bang in trouble.
Yeah, well, not dropped. I mean, I think, you know,
compared to Everton and Nottingham Forest, what's the scale of the trouble?
Here's your headline.
The scale is on a completely different level. I mean, there can be no question that that this will end in, at least relegation, right? So there's no question.
Look at Simon and Jim. Silence. For the first time in this whole video, silence. Oh, he's saying City will get relegated. Let's listen.
If those charges are proven. There are a suggestion of conspiracy over effectively 10-year period. You know, they're suggesting that City's main sponsorship agreements are not for, let's say, 50, 60 million pounds, but are actually for 8 million pounds. And the whole thing was a sham, and a whole load of people lied, and a whole load of executives from multiple companies were in on it. And
all
City
with
then
interest and common ownership.
Well, actually, some of them outside of common ownership, but a number of people were also vested interest, perhaps, and that the club also lied to multiple other parties, professionals, people doing due diligence on the company, the league, UEFA, the FA. It just goes on and on.
So you're saying
they just blatantly refused to cooperate to such a point that they got sanctioned even by CAS.
No, that's a separate point.
And it is a separate point. He's exactly right, because the way Simon Jordan is talking there, as if failing to cooperate is the biggest law-breaking and the horrific act of fraudulent behaviour the world has ever seen. Failing to cooperate. Yeah, of course they're failing to cooperate. City believe they're innocent. In a completely exaggerated hypothetical scenario, imagine if you're a murderer or you've been accused of murdering someone, let's say, and then the police are trying to question the individual, the accused, and saying, "Excuse me, like, would you tell us why you murdered this person?" And then the police are complaining, "He's failing to cooperate. He's failing to cooperate." Like, of course he is. He's not going to say, "Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I did it. Of course I did it. Yeah, I murdered him. No problem." What the fuck do you think City are going to do? Just hand everything over and say, and that's even if they are guilty, even if they're innocent, they're not going to cooperate because you have to charge us. It's the same with the police who were turning up at the door, knocking on your door. The neighbours said, we're suspicious of some sort of drug activity is going on in your house, and we would like to investigate your house, please. Then the house owner would say, "Well, what proof have you got?" The neighbour said so. Right, well, go and get your warrant, go and charge us officially, and go and get your court order to have access to my house, and I will have no choice but to allow you to search my house. Until then, I'm going to fail to cooperate and say fuck off. Okay? So it's simple as that. And why is that so unfathomable for people to understand? That's perfectly normal litigation practice. That's exactly what that is. Normal behaviour in law. I've never seen anything like it.
I mean, if you look at the CAS judgment...
There's a tacit acceptance from everybody that's dealt with them, including the Premier League, that there is a blatant refusal. And even in UEFA's judgment, followed up by CAS's judgment, there is an absolute unequivocal acceptance that they've been charged with an absolute refusal to cooperate.
Yeah,
that's
these are separate
things. That's why they got a £10 million fine.
These are separate matters. So there is a situation of refusal.
Well, it goes to the heart of what you're saying, which is the provision of information and people being prepared to provide information in certain ways and their integrity being compromised. If you're stymieing the flow of information, then there is an element of the manner in which you behave puts you in a situation.
No. Jim, take your pen out of your mouth, mate. You look like a dog with a stick.
Where people can't get clear pictures.
I don't agree with that. I think you have to separate two things. You have to separate the battle of very serious allegations and the litigation that surrounds it. And I've been involved in English litigation regarding allegations of dishonesty, not against myself.
As have I.
Not against myself.
As have I, right. Well, that's it now. We're in a dick measuring contest now, aren't we? A litigation dick measuring contest. Fantastic.
I don't know about
no, I put one against one of the most difficult cases
so
in English law, fraudulent misrepresentation.
So you will know. So fraudulent misrepresentation is a good example. You will know how hard people fight about disclosure of documents, about every inch of the way to try and stymie the other side. That is a normal approach to high value, high profile litigation. There is nothing in itself wrong with that. And I think that any innuendo or inference that comes from that is wrong. Now, I'm not saying they didn't breach the rules of UEFA in terms of their cooperation. They clearly did, and they were fined for it. But to be perfectly honest with you, it's not that big a deal compared to the charges that have been laid by the Premier League.
And in terms of the charges here, Stefan, if I can pick up on it, if they are found guilty of the charges that they will face, that they are facing, Manchester City will face at least relegation.
Yeah, he's already said that, Jim. You're trying to make the headline bigger than it already is. And it's fishing expedition, that's all this is.
Well, it's just hard to see how it can be any other way, because you will have confirmed that if proven...
Exactly. If proven, that's the caveat to all this.
This nature in an independent commission, I think it's a completely inappropriate forum for a case of this nature. But
absolutely spot on. That is such a good terminology there. An inappropriate forum. That's exactly right. This is basically the Premier League thinking they're the police, because what they are accusing Manchester City of is fraudulent. That's law. That's the law within the UK, financial law within the UK. Okay? And the Premier League are exactly the terminology that he said, an inappropriate forum. That's exactly what it is, thinking. And that's why you brace yourself, City fans, because basically the Premier League are going to think, we've got him. We'll get him into our room where we can control everything and pull strings and go, you're guilty, relegated. And that's exactly what UEFA did. Don't forget, we were kicked out of Europe before we took it to a genuinely independent panel, CAS, and we're cleared of all charges. It's going to happen again. The Premier League are going to charge us, claiming that they're independent as well. Nonsense. And then when we take it officially to an independent panel, the Court of Law, we will wipe the fucking floor with the Premier League.
If proven, this is super serious. I mean, there can be nobody would argue with that. City themselves in their submissions, I promise you, because they've said it to CAS, they will say this is an allegation of the most serious nature.
Manchester City say robustly they will clear their name. Do you think they will?
I think they'll clear their name, because I think a case of this nature has to have a level of cogent proof which seems to me to be impossible to present to an independent commission. And furthermore,
see Simon then, cut him off, he's talking too much sense. Stop talking sense. We don't like that on TalkSport. We need to hear waffle on TalkSport.
It seems to me highly unlikely that the conduct that is alleged has taken place over a 10-year period with the sorts of individuals that are involved in the club and in the companies that are involved. It seems to me highly unlikely, and that also will be the starting point of any independent commission, whether Simon likes it or not.
Oh, sit down, Simon.
That is their starting point, and it will be a very big call for any quasi-court tribunal to suggest that this number of people have been dishonest and have perjured themselves. That will be a massive call for effectively some KCs and maybe a former finance director of a football club to make against not just Manchester City, but against numerous executives, against some third-party individuals, and against, of course, potentially senior members of foreign states.
Same sort of argument as I'm with
That's
Imran.
enough. Shut up.
Football
Shut him up. Cut him off. Cut him off. That's enough. Bye-bye. Yeah, so basically that was the end of the video, and it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, there's 3 points I wanted to make. What he was making there, Stefan, at the end of that video was suggesting the amount of people. Once again, I've been saying it for months. How can you have an operation of this size? What they are accusing us of is hundreds and hundreds of people have to be involved. And not a single one of them has been a whistleblower. Not one of them has let this information slip, other than illegally hacked and clearly doctored information. That's what we're going off. Okay, and this operation that we're talking about requires an off-the-scale conspiracy in terms of lawyers, the executives of other companies as well. They all need to be brought down and have the hammer brought down on them as well. Even people at government level need to be removed from this situation. That's the size of this conspiracy that we're talking about, and that is what the Premier League are trying to level at Manchester City. That's point one. The second point I wanted to make is this man was once, Stefan, as much as I have a huge amount of respect for him for going on TalkSport like that and not just standing up for City, but providing facts as well as just an objective, he said objective, Simon, opinion to the whole situation, an objective approach to the situation, because it was clear as day that he was trying to be fair in his approach, but the fact is he ripped them to shreds. All those questions, he's just ripped Simon Jordan to shreds, which is a bit of an anomaly because Simon Jordan usually does it to the people who are guests on his show, but he got put in his place this time, and rightfully so, because he clearly has an agenda. But don't forget, this is a man who is capable of ripping these charges to shreds. City don't even hire this individual anymore. Imagine the level of lawyers that Manchester City now have at their disposal. Lord Panic, for those of you who need to go and investigate, go and check out his track record, because he was involved in fucking Brexit, mate. So he's going to wipe the fucking floor with the Premier League. We move beyond Stefan Borson now. We are hiring Lord Panic as our lawyer. So imagine what he's going to do with the case. Third point on Stefan Borson, which I guarantee most people, rival fans, will be trying to highlight with regards to this person's individual approach and his opinions on the matter, will be the fact that he highlighted he's a City fan. And it's like, how can we trust the integrity of a Manchester City fan? Well, how can we trust the integrity of the rest of the media, who are all Manchester United fans, Liverpool fans and Arsenal fans, who are all saying Manchester City should be relegated? It goes both ways. You can't have it one way where let's hear the opinion of United, Liverpool and Arsenal fans, but then as soon as you hear a Manchester City fans, you don't like what he's got to say because it goes against what your opinion is and your agenda. Bollocks. Absolute bollocks. And I cannot wait for the day to come, the day of reckoning, when Manchester City embarrasses the whole of the football pyramid who have laughed at us and called us cheats for over a year now. That day of reckoning is coming soon, and I cannot wait.
This is